Besides excessive emotions, I've also witnessed a promiscuous use of dubious sources to back up accusations targeting China. Let me use the example of Xinjiang for deadly sin number 5, gluttony, feasting from the same plates of toxic sources. Most evidence of the so-called human rights abuses in Xinjiang can be traced to only 2 sources. One is a so-called senior fellow for China studies by the name of Adrian Zenz with the far-right Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. It's an organization authorized by the US government in the 1990s, which is known for preaching regime change. By cobbling together dubious sources, he had made extremely broad estimates about the number of so-called detained Uyghurs in Xinjiang, from hundreds of thousands to 1.8 million. And he tries to shirk responsibility by admitting the severe limitations of the study.
This photo that you mentioned not only shows an elderly couple being visited by a free medical clinic and receiving free medical care that I think many of my neighbors in the United States would yearn for. They're surrounded by elderly people. I don't see anyone in the photo who is of childbearing age. And Zenz cites this photo as an example of coercive birth control measures and mass surveillance, which really goes to his own prejudice.
Despite his work on Xinjiang never being published by any academic institution, never having been peer-reviewed, media in the West never seemed to question his qualifications or challenge him. He became a US-recognized pundit on the subject and contributed to big media outlets including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN.
Why is it only one very small handful of people, all connected to the US or British government, always being referenced? Why can they not find a multitude of people from a variety of backgrounds and affiliations?
The other convenient source on Xinjiang for the West is the Australian think tank ASPI. It's hardly independent given the funding it receives from the US, Australian and British governments, NATO and arms producers such as Lockheed Martin. But it's been caught by US government-funded media as independent and non-partisan. In a report led by the think tank so-called analyst Xu Xiuzhong, published in early 2020, more than 80,000 Uyghurs were allegedly forced to go out of Xinjiang and work in factories across China. But the report is also filled with flimsy arguments and self-contradictions. For instance, the document decries the isolation of Uyghur workers who speak almost no Mandarin, while denouncing Mandarin language classes offered to these workers as political indoctrination. Nevertheless, the report received instant international attention with little critical engagement. Well, I also talked to 2 researchers who did their own study in response to ASPI's report. They interviewed 70 workers from Xinjiang, including Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, at 5 different companies in Guangdong to find out more about their situations.
They came to work in Guangdong out of their own choice and free will. There are several reasons for them came to Guangdong, such as the high salary and the natural environment, and some of them want to broaden their horizons. To ask them to stay in Xinjiang and do not leave Xinjiang, you have to stay there in your whole life, you have to work there. It is not fair.
After being quoted extensively in Western media reports, Adrian Zenz and the ASPI have paved the way for Western policies to impose Xinjiang-related sanctions. So what do the people in Xinjiang themselves have to say about these allegations? I went there in April 2021 and spoke to people living there, including Uyghurs. Here's what they told me.
Özgürüş olğa işler oltırak oylarımızı yanılap bədi, davalını soğrutunlarımızı cıq götürüdüğün qıp bədi, balının oquşlarını əxsiz qıp bədi, tok bolsun, su bolsun, burun şaşı dolarımız yoxdu. 5 yılın avalda şaşı da yoxdu, şaşı dolarımızı ravan qıp bədi, özgürüşlü bekcik.
我现在生活特别好，送完孩子然后过来赚，给我的顾客就是 寄他们的货、衣服，生意也特别好。
未来还想待在新疆吗？
那必须的。
我们是乌鲁木齐的吗？
全是谣言，
全是谣言。
全是谣言。
为什么他们要讲这些谣言？
这是敌人嘛，就是对中国敌态度的。那看不见他们那个中国的崛起嘛。所以他们这个千方百计的阻挠中国的发展。
I saw happiness. I saw one province really fantastic, where the people can work. When we have a lot of innovations there.
There's a famous thing which, if you lie so many times, it becomes the truth, and I think that's what we're seeing here. It's lie after lie after lie. There's no facts. Actually, there's a lot of evidence of the population of the Uyghur population increasing, but all the Western media do is just repeat the same line. And I think when such well-respected news institutions do that, people start believing it, even if there isn't any evidence